Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Good morning, Glenn.
Hey, brother, what's going on, Mr. Mikey? Smiley Mike. They call you Smiley Mike for a reason.
Well, you know, my dentist calls me Thank You Mike for a reason.
$50,000 mouth mic, right?
I know,
That's
right?
awesome, man. That's awesome, man.
So heavy investment into my smile and my sobriety. So I worked on my smile this week at the dentist. I'm working on my sobriety this morning with you and a couple of other friends.
Boom, man. That's awesome. And I got the big cup of coffee here, the extra large coffee. It's about my fourth one already today, so I'm pretty well teed up. But it's always good to connect.
You don't have any of the fancy stuff in there like sugar and cream, do you?
No, man. I actually go for the cheapest. I use a K-Cup, and I try to go on Amazon for the cheapest price per K-Cup. And to me, it tastes just like whatever a premium brand you want. So I'm saving money, Mikey.
Well, the ex-Mrs. Bezos thanks you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, man. So hey, we got a special little thing we're doing today, little trial. So we are connected with as you know, we're connected with a bunch of folks out there in social media land, on Twitter, on Instagram, and read a lot of good stuff, connect with some good people, and hear a lot of good stories. And one of the things that keeps popping up, and it's probably for me, it's a relatively new term out there. And maybe it's because, we're recording this in May and it's hard to follow the timeline of our episodes. We're recording in May, but coming off of January, right? January was like, Drive January, and then I saw people like, hashtag Drive February and hashtag, Drive 2022, right? And so I started seeing this hashtag out there and this theme, Sober Curious, right? So, especially a lot of folks are connecting with us and they're tired of the pain. They're hungover last night, hungover the last week, just the pain of drinking, the results. And they're like, okay, what's sobriety, right? So they start searching sobriety on Google, right? And they start finding stuff and, finding, sober social media accounts and whatever. So, people out there are sober curious, just like I was, right? Because I knew drinking was a problem. I'm like, man, what's this not drinking stuff, and there's so much fear. And so I thought we'd break apart, a little time today and do something different, right? Mm-hmm. To maybe serve those people who are sober curious or maybe even AA curious, right? Mm-hmm. But before I do, I want to tell a story about a guy I connected with several years ago on, I've got a sober Twitter account called Stay Sober Today. And a guy reached out and he goes, hey man, how do you do this sobriety stuff, right? And what's this AA stuff? And I talked to him for 3 months and he refused to go to the AA rooms. He refused, and so I connected with him and I stayed connected. We talked on the phone several times. And he said, look, I don't want to go to AA because I live in a smaller town and how this stuff works, funny as can be. He lives in like the town I grew up in, right? In like the Philadelphia area. And so how odd is that? And he's like, I don't want to go in the rooms because I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want people to know that I have a problem. And I said to him, I said, dude, I totally get that, but just to kind of tee you up a little bit, they have the same problem. That's why they're in the rooms. And he never thought of it that way. He's like, oh my God, okay. So he finally, after 3 months on Twitter, 3 months of phone calls, of being sober curious, of being AA curious, he finally goes into the rooms. Long story short, stayed connected with them. I was kind of his temporary sponsor or whatever for a while. And then he got a sponsor from the rooms and he just celebrated 2 years of sobriety. Changed his life. Just because he's out on social media and sober curious. So what I thought we'd do is do a first step meeting. And we brought some of our friends in the room with us, in the coffee shop with us. And a lot of people are like, well, what's this AA stuff? What does an AA meeting look like? What is it going to look like the first time I walk in the room, because I'm petrified? And we have 6 people on the phone today, on our virtual coffee shop. And all 6 of us wondered that same thing. All 6 of us had that pit in our stomach. What's it like to go in the room?
All six of us walked into that room the first time, right?
That's right. So what I thought we'd do, and Mikey, I'll bounce it to you. I thought we'd run an actual open, and Mike, I'll let you explain what that is, open AA meeting. And typically when somebody walks in for the first time, we do what they call a first step meeting. There's 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. We do a first step meeting, and that's where everybody just goes around and kind of shares at will their experience, strength, and hope, their story, right, of what brought them into the room, what happened, what they did, and what it's like now, right? Yeah. Kind of sharing some hope. And it's funny because sometimes, we use jargon and stuff, and some of it's not going to make sense, or it's going to sound like a bunch of, metaphors or whatever. But our message is just sit through it, just listen. You are very welcome. If you're sober curious, if you're AA curious, you are very welcome. And, feel free to reach out to us afterwards. We're on all kinds of social media, Sober.Coffee Podcast. We're on Sober.Coffee website. Stay Sober Today, Twitter handle. We're at Sober.Coffee Pod on Twitter. So a lot of ways to connect with us. But with that, I'll bounce it to you, Mikey, and I'll let you be the chairperson. Okay. And we'll run it like a normal meeting.
Yeah. So chairperson, when you walk into the rooms, there's usually a gal or a guy sitting up in front, and they got some paper in front of them. The chairperson at a AA meeting is just a facilitator. That's what they are. They make sure the door was open for you this morning when you walked in. They make sure that the meeting goes according to Hoyle, stays under 59 minutes. What is it?
But most importantly, they make sure the coffee's pouring.
Make sure the coffee's poured, right? So the chairperson will call the meeting to order. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to go through, and then we're going to go through it, and then we'll talk about what we went through. So there's a format, and most AA meetings are follow some format. So you can go to regions all around the globe, and which I have and experienced different meeting settings. So, but there's a format that's usually followed throughout the world, and so we're going to follow that format. We're going to open it up with a quiet time followed by the Serenity Prayer. We're going to talk a little bit about the organization. We're going to talk about the meeting. Then we're going to do some readings, one to begin the meeting and one to close the meeting. The one to begin the meeting is found, it's taken from pages 58 and 59 of what they call the Alcoholics Anonymous book, or the Big Book. And it's 2 pages of reading, but it's I beg you to pay attention to it, because it's kind of what got us to this point right now of sobriety, and maybe your first time here, this is maybe the journey. You'll see it unfolding in front of you. And then we'll open it up to the room. They'll share their experience, strength, and hope with you. And then we'll close up by reading again from the Big Book, page 86, 84. Yes. Called The Promises. And we'll close up with that. And so that's pretty much how the meeting is going to go. So I start out by saying, hello, everybody. I'm Mike. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike.
To which everybody says, hey, giddy up, Mike. I announced the closed meeting statement, or in this case, the open meeting statement, and that is simply that Alcoholics Anonymous, in support of AA's singleness of purpose, attendance at open meetings. This open meeting is limited to persons who have a desire to stop drinking. If you think you have a problem with alcohol, you are more than welcome to attend this meeting. We do ask during this meeting that when discussing your problems, you confine those problems as they relate to alcoholism. Can we start this meeting with a quiet time followed by the Serenity Prayer, please? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I'll remind all our participants today, so we'll do a little housekeeping. Keep yourself muted till you're open to talk. Announcements will usually take place, any AA-related announcements, but we won't have any for this particular meeting. Then we talk about the seventh tradition, right? So how does this whole thing work? Who gets paid, right? Follow the money. My dad always told me, follow the money. AA is a funny kind of sort of way. You can follow the money and it's not going to go much further than the basket you throw your buck or two into. Usually what's requested is to throw a buck or two in the basket, and that just keeps the doors open and the Folgers in the pot. There is no hierarchy with Alcoholics Anonymous. There's no dues that are needed. Just a desire to stop drinking is the only requirement for membership, and we are self-supporting in our own contributions. So then we open the meeting with, and Glenn, you're going to help me out with this a little bit. We're going to open up with the with pages 58 and 59 of the big book, and it's a segment called How It Works.
We can ping pong it.
We'll ping pong. I'll start it out, and then Glenn and I will ping pong it. So it goes like this. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided that you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. Now, at some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember, we deal with alcohol. Cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us, but there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We ask, his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable.
2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him.
4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves.
5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs.
6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character.
7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings.
8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all.
9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others.
10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it.
11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out.
12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Many of us exclaimed, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. Again, those are readings from page 58, 59 of the Alcoholics Big Book. Sometimes at meetings, we'll do readings from some daily devotionals to drive a topic or point us to a direction of conversation. But today we're going to honor you, the first-time listener who's in the room, and we're just going to go around the room, as they say, as the Spirit leads us, and just kind of share a little bit about what our journey, what got us into Alcoholics Anonymous, what we're doing to keep ourselves sober, and what life looks like now that we are sober. So I'm going to open up the floor to anybody who would like to share a little bit of experience, strength, and hope with our new listeners.
Hi, I'd like to go first. My name is Ruth Ann, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Ruth Ann.
Hi, Ruth Ann.
Hi. So I do welcome our newcomers, somebody that might be listening in and hearing us speak, because I don't even know. I think I was sober ignorant before coming into the room. I'd heard of AA way back, and I thought, back in the day, I'm like, why don't they just stop drinking? What's the big deal? Why can't somebody stop drinking? But I'd like to tell you what it was like for me and what happened and what it's like now. So I probably didn't drink most of my life, or if I did was, teenage Boone's Farm kind of stuff. And then went into raising kids and, having a family and focusing on a career. And then began taking care of parents. And, I'd had a, very full, to that point, typical, I thought, life. And then some things started happening. Things started crumbling around me. And at that time, my coping was, I'll come home and have a drink of, I'll have wine. And I then learned, I became like bougie on wine. I did all kinds of fancy things on wine, and I had all of the paraphernalia, and it was all good. I was fancy. And then I found, I'll have another, maybe one in the with a mimosa in the morning. And over the course, pretty quickly, like over the course of 2 to 3, maybe 4 years, I plummeted. I got to the point where I couldn't not drink. I had to drink, and my body needed it. So I really crashed out, and I thought, well, let's see what is available. So at that point, I might have become sober, not so much sober curious, but oh my gosh, desperation, had to find a solution. My first introduction, walking in a door, was, very apprehensive, typical to cry most of the meeting. We all know that, because if anyone else I see coming in the room, my heart goes out to them. I'm very sympathetic, because I know what it's like personally, and each of us knows that. And listened to those that were talking, and they shared very much like we're doing, shared what it was like for them. And when listening, I was told not to, compare, like, oh, well, I didn't have a DUI. Oh, I didn't go to jail. I didn't lose anything. I didn't think at the time I had lost anything. But I had lost things like my self-respect and my own pride and the respect of others as well. So, but listen to find the similarities, and my part on this is that I just could not stop drinking. I needed it all day long. And so listening to their stories helped me realize, and I kind of thought they were fake, like, how could they laugh? They're just faking it. I came here to find out how we could drink a little bit and not, how to be a normal drinker. Well, I kept coming back. My beginnings were not perfect, but it's about progress. When I did fall off, during the first, couple of months, I had a couple of ins and outs and slips, as we like to call them. But, because I just thought I could still be normal drinker. And, I learned my lesson through that, and I had to prove it to myself. So at this point, now I got to the point where I now honestly can say I do not have the desire to drink. It and it only came through working the program, working with others. And this really, to me, is a life program. It's not one where you come in and you just apply it to, this little aspect of my life. It integrates. And through the program, I've learned more about myself, which is what I think I was always seeking. There is a spiritual aspect. I find that it's not the religious, the structure ruled harshness of some religions, but it is spiritual, and I find that very much integrated part of my life. So my life is full. I do have I have my own self-respect and pride while keeping the humility. I am honored. At one point things were happening through my first early sobriety, like I was 2 years in, I had my world crash around me again, between, after just getting married after several years with my beloved. We got married, and 4 months later he died, and 4 months later I lost my job. 4 months later I got a new job, but COVID hit, so I had to learn a new platform, new people, new company, and a new delivery mode of it, since we were all working from home. The fun continued in 4-month increments of things, but it was a 2-year series. And it's not just even holding on, I kept my peace and serenity through that. So I'm just very thankful for the program, and to those that I see in the rooms every day, because you get to know each other well. And, it's not a matter of, it's not group therapy. It's life, and we're working together for that, and we genuinely care. So that's all I know so far. I'm learning more every day. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Ruth Ann.
Thanks, Ruth Ann.
Hey, good morning, guys. My name's Matt, and I am an alcoholic.
Hey, Matt.
And morning. Ruth Ann, thanks for the lead this morning. And Mike and Glenn, great job on this podcast and allowing me the opportunity to be here today. But ultimately, AA is the reason I could be here today and have this discussion openly with not only the people that are on this segment, but any of the listeners. You mentioned experience, strength, and hope. I didn't know what those words meant before I came into the room. My experience was, how can I find that next drink? How do I find that next bottle? This is a very ego deflating program. And I didn't know what that meant, because ego drove me. It felt great when I was traveling the country for my career and being recognized when I walked into a nice hotel that I've been numerous times, and they say, "Hey, how you doing, Matt?" And lo and behold, it was the bartender, because I saw him probably more than I saw my customers on those trips. But I didn't think I had a problem. I didn't think I had a problem until I tried to get back home from Houston one time. And I was paralyzed. I really didn't know, what I was doing. I drank all morning, and I probably, we talk about hitting bottom and the pain. I didn't realize the pain that I was going through, or what I was causing to the people around me over all those years of drinking, because that's how important alcohol was to me. And that's what drove me. And the funny thing is I called my sponsor, and I didn't really recognize what that program meant at that point in time by reaching out. And I should have reached out before I grabbed the bottle, but I didn't at that time. But this person was willing to fly from Chicago to Houston to help me get home. And at that point, I'm like, my best friends wouldn't have done that. That bartender sure wasn't around to help me get home from Houston to Chicago. So that world that I was living in was such a facade and such an ego-driven world that really the only thing that mattered was me. That's when I recognized not that I recognized I had a problem, but when I finally confronted it and, went to my first meeting. And that first meeting was basically held at a hospital. There was 100 people in the room. And I went because my spouse just kept squawking, you need help, you need help. And finally I'm like, all right, I'll go to a meeting. And it was more to just kind of calm that noise in my head. So I went to this meeting, and I was the wallflower, of course, because I wasn't all in. I had a toe dipped in the water, as we say. But again, it was more to pacify my wife. So as everybody was going around the room, it's like, this person was, drinking. They lost their home, as was said earlier here. I didn't get a DUI. I didn't lose my house. I didn't lose my career yet. And as I sat back, all I kept thinking to myself is, I'm not that bad. I'm not like these people. I can't be that bad. And all I was doing was justifying why I didn't need to be in that room. So I leave the meeting, and, I come home and I tell my wife, I said, man, those people were really, really racked and messed up. And I convinced her for a period of time that, I was okay. Maybe I just had a bad day, or maybe I lashed out or was angry because, things didn't go my way that day. And, a couple months later, I met a group through an IOP program. And it was the same program that my sponsor was an alumni of. And that's how I connected with this group. And if it wasn't for this group, I don't know where I'd be. I really don't. Well, I do. I'd probably either be in jail, dead, or probably, under a rock somewhere. The program is simple to follow, not simple to live, because we have choices and overcoming that repetitive motion of alcohol and that obsession. Once you break that, as Ruth Ann said, every day becomes manageable. Life still comes at us. Life still comes at me. Nothing is stopped around me. I know now how to handle that. The tools in my AA toolbox that I've learned not only from being in these rooms, but through the steps, allows me to deal with things instead of cut and run and race back to that alcohol. And it was tough. I mean, alcohol's in front of us 24/7. If you have a job, you're going past those local haunts that we used to go into, or every ad that you see on TV is promoting alcohol. Guest hosts promote alcohol. And it's difficult to pull away from that, but that's when you just have to really bear down and use the room, use the network, use the, I call it, and we all call it, kind of our built-in army of support. Everybody in this room I know personally, and I know personally from being in this program. And I know that I could reach out to anybody and vice versa, but I know that that I can trust them. There was no judgment. No matter what I did, this program didn't pass judgment. It welcomed me with open arms, even in the worst days of my life. And it helped me prop myself back up where, hey, I'm a good citizen again. I'm clear-headed. I'm present in the life of my family. Not everything's right yet. I still have some work to do with two of my children that I kind of damaged in the past, but I'm working towards getting better there. But every day I wake up, it's such a refreshing thought that I'm not racing around my house looking for that bottle that I hid the night before. I'm not trying to scrounge around for quarters or nickels to say, how can I buy the cheapest booze possible just to take that edge off in the morning? So I'm very thankful and grateful for this program. I'm grateful for the way that it opened up a spiritual connection for me as well. Mike and Glenn, truthfully, you guys are rock stars. I mean, I've listened to you guys from day one on this podcast, and that's what it's about. It's serving the coffee. It's being there to provide a message, but it's also being there to support that person that's ailing or sick next to you, that I can help them become a sober person. So, awesome. I appreciate you guys inviting me this morning, and looking forward to the future, man.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Hi, Mike. I'm an alcoholic. Oh,
Hey,
go
good
ahead.
morning, everyone.
I'm Lynn. I'm an alcoholic. I'm just kidding,
Oh.
Lynn. You're Lynn.
Hi, I'm Lynn. I'm an alcoholic. Good morning, everyone. Mike and Glenn, thanks. Kudos to you guys. Amazing the service work you do and the podcast and the program that you put out. Ruth Ann, thanks for the lead, and Megan and Matt, your stories too. I'm an alcoholic. I came into the rooms because my kids asked me to come into the rooms. I did not come in the room because I thought I was an alcoholic. An alcoholic in my head was not me. I didn't drink every day. I didn't drink even once a week sometimes. I didn't get up in the morning and drink, but it doesn't matter. I found out later it doesn't matter. When I came into the rooms, my son introduced me to one of his friend's moms who was, excuse me, an alcoholic, and asked me to call her. So I did. And she said, why don't you come in and see what it's like? So I did. I came in, she met me at the door so I didn't have to walk in all by myself. And I walked in, everybody's laughing, and I was like, I can do this, I sat down, excuse me. I came to the meeting every day for over 6 months, 7 months. Compared myself to everybody else in the room instead of not doing that. I didn't drink every day. I didn't have a DUI. I haven't been in jail. Never hurt anybody. All those things. I did just the opposite of what they say to do. And not doing it on purpose, but that's just how I felt. I thought, I don't drink every day. So I missed a few parties. So I missed a few family functions. So I sat at home and drank by myself. So what? I'm not bothering you. So came in the rooms, listened to those readings that Mike and Glenn did earlier, and all I heard was wah, wah, wah. Not on purpose. It wasn't being disrespectful, but it just didn't connect. I got a sponsor. My sponsor told me to just hang on, you'll get it. Just sit and listen for a while. Okay, so that's what I did. And 11 months later, I decided I could probably go out and have a drink. I haven't drank in 11 months. I'm fine. What's the big deal if I have a drink? And that one drink got me 3 days in the emergency room, detoxing. 3 days later in a psych ward before I went to a 30-day rehab. It was in the middle of COVID. I went to the 30-day rehab. My roommate got COVID. I started having panic attacks, and I left because I didn't want to get COVID. So I came back in the rooms and I listened again. I got a sponsor. She started walking me through the steps, and I still didn't think I was an alcoholic. After all that, I thought, you know what? I could probably have a drink. I could probably do this. Now, you would think after going through, a 3-day stint in the hospital and then another 3 days in the hospital and a 30-day program, I would have gotten it. But again, in the back of my head, I didn't drink every day. So one more time I tried it, but I stopped myself. And I went back immediately. I didn't get too far. I went back immediately into the rooms. And I heard somebody say, you have to believe you're an alcoholic. And I do now. And I'm here and I've been here. And I take this program very serious. I didn't lose my kids. I could have lost my kids. I never hurt anybody. I could have. But the fact of the matter is I hid bottles in my house and I lived alone. So, to somebody that maybe doesn't think that they're an alcoholic, there's so many things that I missed out on and I lost out on because I didn't take it serious. And I didn't do it out of disrespect. I just didn't think I was an alcoholic. And the fact of the matter, absolutely I am. And I say it a lot. I'm not happy to admit that I'm an alcoholic. And I'm damn happy I found this program because my life is amazing since I've come back in the rooms. And I was never a bad person. Just because I drank, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. But all the things that have changed in my life, being off of medicines, no more depression. I drank because I was depressed and I didn't even know it. And hello, alcohol is a depressant, so it made it worse. But just the fact that I figured it out and I have a second chance, and man, life is wonderful. Bad things still happen. Life is not perfect. But the fact that I can handle things now and I don't have to crawl into a bottle to figure it out. And when I did crawl into a bottle, it didn't help. Instead, it lasted for 3 days sometimes. And then, like I say, I wasn't a drinker every day, but boy, when I picked up that drink, I didn't stop. And the fact that I know now that obsession is gone. It's lifted. It's gone. I don't think about it. I get alcohol in my face every day. We all do. It's in our face. It's in a commercial. It's on a program. And it all looks wonderful and romantic and bougie and, but it's not. It's not for me. And it's not for an alcoholic. There are people that can handle it, but I couldn't. And that's why I'm here. And my hope for anybody that comes into the room is that they take it serious. And again, I don't think that I was doing it on purpose. But listen to the words, take the words that people say and truly, take it to heart and listen. And, if you're here, you probably need to be here. If you walked in the rooms, you probably need to stay in the rooms. And tell you again, life is wonderful. It's a great experience. And the people I've met in these rooms, amazing. And I will continue to be in the rooms on a daily basis because it makes me a better person. So that's all I got. And I just hope that and pray that if you've come in here, you stay and you'll hear something that will click, that will keep you coming back. That's all I got. Thanks.
Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn. Hey, everybody. Glenn, alcoholic. When we do these first step meetings, I always think back to the first time that I came into AA. And, it wasn't my lifelong dream to go into AA. I actually, growing up, I know a lot of people start drinking when they're young. I probably drank a 6-pack in high school and a 6-pack in college, just because of how I was brought up. And, but then I started in the business world and I got, in 1995, I was 30, I got promoted and, we worked hard during the day and started, drinking at night and partying at night. And, we worked hard, played hard. And man, it just really caught on quick. But for me, for a long period of time, booze worked, drinking worked, cocktails worked. I'm kind of an outgoing person, so it wasn't like I was trying to overcome shyness, but it was fun fuel, or it was fuel for fun. And, I did that for several years. And then somewhere along the line, I crossed the line from fun drinking to problem drinking. I realized that kind of quick. After a couple of years, I was tailgating at my daughter's dance recital. And I kind of knew normal drinkers don't, go out in the middle and tailgate. And then in 2003, I had a issue at the Masters. Actually blacked out, passed out, busted my face open. And I knew all along I had a problem, so step one says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. I knew at that point I was powerless over alcohol. I was living my life. I was building my life around when I was going to get my next drink. And, so I was at the Masters, had a disaster, and 2 days later, I went into a rehab. And I picked a posh rehab in Laguna Beach, and I picked it for the right reasons. I picked it because it had beach yoga, running on the beach, and I probably had never ran in my life, but I thought that sounded cool, and, I was going to do that in sobriety, and had a private chef, and, it had, group therapy on the, back deck overlooking the ocean. I'm like, wow, I can heal there. I'll fix my problem there. And so I was in a 6-day detox, and I finally, woke up enough to come out of detox, and they walked me across the hall into an AA meeting. And I felt scammed. I'm like, look, the website didn't say anything about AA. What the crap is this? And, so I didn't really, go willingly. Long story short, AA is a simple program. I complicated it. I wanted to do it my way. I wanted to work AA when I felt like it, when it was convenient for me. And I wanted to reword everything so it suited me. And I got the result. And the result was well over 75, hospitalizations, detoxes. I had 4 full-blown inpatient rehab centers, one for 4 months, including sober living. I've been several sober livings, 45-day hospital program at Rush here in Chicago, and 10 PhDs lined up going to tell me, why I drank and figure it out and make it so I don't drink. I drank right all through that program. And I couldn't live without a drink. I got to the point where I lost everything. I lost relationships, marriages, kids. I lost money. I lost everything. And then in 2014, and there were periods in there where I put them, periods of sobriety, 3 months here, 6 months there. There was one time I made it to 13 months. I was at a conference out in Colorado looking at the mountains, and I was on the phone with my sponsor, what I was supposed to be doing on the phone with my sponsor. And I remember telling him, dude, I've got this. And I hung up and I drank disastrous relapse all the way home on the plane. And then in 2014, September, I went out to a conference in Palm Springs. I relapsed on my way out there. I had a bottle of vodka in my backpack. As I was doing business meetings, in the last 4 days of the conference, I have zero memory. I was total blackout for 4 days straight until I landed up in a hospital in Palm Springs. I was in 6 hospitals across the country that week. I landed up in an 8-day detox, and on Friday afternoon, I was sitting on my counselor's floor of what was going to be a 4-month program. And I couldn't even sit in a chair. I was so hurt. And I looked at my counselor and I said, dude, this is my point of surrender. I said, dude, I will do anything you tell me to do. I just cannot take the next drink. And I did everything he told me to do, whether I felt like it or not. Most of the time I didn't feel like it, but I did it. And I did things in that 4-month program. I surrendered to the steps of AA, meaning I'm going to do what this book tells me to do. Not what Glenn wants to do in this book, but what this book tells me to do. I surrendered to my sponsor. And still to this day, I have almost 7 years sober, and I do what the program tells me to do. I do what my sponsor tells me to do. I do what the people of this program, when I come to these meetings, I take their suggestions. I use their tools because they were able to get through those situations without having to take a drink. And over 7 years, I have got through many situations that were scary. I needed courage. I was fearful of them. They sucked. And I was able to get through them using this program without having to take a drink. And one of the things we're going to read at the end of this meeting are the AA promises. It was funny. I heard them at a meeting after 2 years in, and I turned to the guy next to me. And I'm like, man, those promises are awesome. When do we start reading those? Like, Glenn, we've read those at the end of every meeting for the last 2 years that you've been at. But that just tells you where my head was at. My head was always somewhere else. Had a lot of head trash going on. But the promises really, outline, if you work this program, before you're halfway through, you're going to be amazed. And it makes a list of all the stuff, the good stuff that you're going to get back, the good stuff that's going to happen. And I remember going home that night and writing down. I lived with a sober dude for almost 3 years. And I remember up in my bedroom with the sun setting, I remember writing down everything I was going to get back that I lost. The big house, the big job, all the money, the relationships, my daughter, I was going to get it all back. And what I can say today, and think about it when you listen to the promises, those promises are 100% coming true for me today. But it looks nothing like that initial list that I wrote down. And the only thing that I can attribute that to today is I am no longer driving my life. I am letting the program of AA drive my life. I'm letting a higher power that I have a relationship drive my life. My sponsor's input is helping drive my life. It's hard to fix the problem with the same brain that created it. So those outside influence are really helpful to me. And the key line in the promises is, they will always come true. If we work for them, they will always come true. It doesn't say maybe. It doesn't say, hey, for the chosen few. They will always materialize if we work for them. But there's a couple other key words. It says sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. For me, my whole life, I wanted instantaneous success, instantaneous results. Give me a pill, right? Solve my problem today. What I've learned through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is that sometimes slowly, I'm on the slow train. But I have learned by connecting here, I've learned tools to suffer better through situations I don't like, to accept situations I don't like, not to jump in and try to force everything, because that was my old way. I'd manipulate, I'd use my words. My actions never matched my words. And I learned to live a different way of living. And it's created amazing results. I know we used a lot of phrases here. My suggestion is keep coming back, right? There's a lot of people say, well, AA is a cult. I don't think so. I mean, you can leave AA anytime you want. But I have learned to live differently in AA, and it's an amazing life, and I'm very grateful for it. So my suggestion is just keep coming back, latch on. People in this program, we no longer do this stuff alone. My life became unmanageable. I was powerless. I could not stop drinking. I had to go to a hospital, and it was bad. But I don't have to drink today. I can get through today, without having to take a drink. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the opportunity to jump in and share my story. And I'd love to connect further on the podcast, individually or whatnot. And I really appreciate everybody jumping on today. Thanks.
Thanks, Glenn. So as chair, I get to do the last word, and I also keep my eye on the clock. So we're approaching the top of the hour. I'm going to keep this kind of quick, but I can't thank everybody in this room for the shares. And I heard so many people say, yeah, I've learned so much in these rooms. Well, what did we learn today? I look around the screen and I took some notes, but I couldn't keep up with it. I really need to re-listen to this podcast again because there was pointers in there. You just have to listen through the story. There's pointers, there's notes, there's questions you can ask yourself. And I just love it. I got so much out of this meeting. For me, my I've got the drunk log too, but it wasn't like everybody said. It wasn't the things that I lost, and it wasn't the craziness that I lived. For me, it was the melting of my internal self. I lost myself. Somewhere along the line, I went from a fun buzz, funny Mike in the room, to fast forward to a guy who would drink a fifth before he went to the party, have a glass of wine, one glass, and leave the party and go home and drink again, and I wasn't the funny Mike because I was afraid to open my mouth. That's where it came to. In 2010, I was out in Las Vegas, and I went out there for a conference. I never spent one day at the conference. I never spent one day on the floor of a casino. I holed up in my room, and I drank, and drugged, and I was miserable, and I was comfortable in my miserability, and I saw that as my total end. They banged on the door of my room 2 days after I was supposed to check out, and they were polite enough to escort me out of the hotel and to the airport. I got kicked out of Vegas.
Mikey, who gets kicked out of Vegas?
Who gets kicked out of Vegas, right? So that was 2010. You would think that I'd say, okay, Michael, this is a wake-up call. But I didn't. I didn't until 2018, on October 13, 2018. I woke up and I staggered across the hall, and funny Mike took a slug of his favorite poison, went into the bathroom and puked, and went back in the room and chugged again. And I stumbled out to the kitchen table. It was about 4:50 in the morning. And I remember that because I looked at the clock, and I simply said to myself, I said, I can't live like this anymore. I can't live like this anymore. And then out loud, I said, I need help. And my wife had followed me down the hall when she heard me throwing up, right? Which is shocking because I threw up all the time. But this one time in particular, she followed me down the hall. She was standing in the kitchen. My eyes were closed. I said, I need help. And all of a sudden I heard this voice say, are you serious? You need help? You want help? I said, yes, I do. That was my last drink. My life has changed in so many ways. I went to a rehab, and they introduced me to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'd heard about Alcoholics Anonymous before. As a matter of fact, over my years, some caring people left me a big book. I probably threw 4 or 5 of them away. That's why there's millions of copies sold, because a lot of people throw the first few away. But I held on to the one that they gave me in rehab, my book Alcoholics Anonymous. And it turns out, for me anyway, the irony is that how it works is found on page 58, 59 of the big book. On October 13, 2018, I was exactly 59 years old. So that was where I was at. I was looking in the mirror saying, is this all life has to offer, right? And on page 58, 59 of the big book, there's the answer. There's the solution. Here's how it works. And we worked the first couple of steps in rehab. And then I came out. My first day out of rehab, I went to a meeting. It was, I was nervous as all get out. I didn't cry, but that was just at the first meeting. I ultimately did shed a tear once I realized it was okay. It was a safe haven to cry. It took me a while in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous to realize that nobody's judging me. And I heard that through you guys today. Nobody judged me on my past. Nobody cares about that I got kicked out of Vegas. Really, they chuckle. And then we move on to the serious business of staying sober today. And I heard everybody's tale in this room, and I know that my tale is the same because we ended up at the same emotional place, and that's what's important to me. I sit in a room right now where people get me, and my whole life I didn't feel people understood me at all. I was creative. I was this. I was that. You just, people don't understand what's going on in my head. I'm depressed. I'm this. I'm that. And like Lynn said, I'm drinking a depressant, crying that I'm depressed. What did you think was going to happen? You know? But now I've got a few days of sobriety underneath me. How did I get here? You know, I got here by not doing this by myself. That's the one big change in my life, is that I realized that this program is a we program. Alcoholics Anonymous, as Glenn pointed out, you know, the first words of how it works is, you know, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And in the promises, it says, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, it's a we program. Asking for help didn't stop on October 13, 2018. I ask for help every time I walk into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, whether I say the words or I don't. I'm there because I need help. I need the help of the people that are in this room today. I need the help of the people that were in the rooms that I went to yesterday and tomorrow. And hopefully I can help somebody who's coming into the room for the first time. And if you found yourself here for the first time, I'm going to echo what every single person has said. Just keep coming back. Give it a try. If these 6 stories didn't connect with you, give it a try. Hear another 6. If you still don't think you're an alcoholic, give it a try. Go out and try and drink. Manage your drinking. If you think that you're sober, curious, AA is a great place to land. I'm just going to close out by saying on our podcast, one of the things that we're rolling out this year is to look at other programs and other solutions that are out in the marketplace. I can say emphatically that I did all my research, and nobody touts the success ratio that Alcoholics Anonymous has, just numerically. I mean, millions of people have been cured of their drinking addiction by the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Have some people failed? Absolutely. Are there other programs out there that you can succeed with? I believe so. If Alcoholics Anonymous is not for you, I can just tell you emphatically from me, this program works if I work it. If I just open the book and read it like a novel, it's not a novel. It's a textbook, and it tells me to engage with other people. It tells me to work the steps. It tells me to do service work. And what's the payoff for me? I've got a life that I never imagined. And I'm becoming the person I always wanted to be. So that's all I got. I want to thank everybody for sharing today.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
We're going to close this meeting with the reading of the promises. And I've asked Lynn if she would read the promises from page 84, 86 of the big book.
Love the promises. Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, guys. I am Lynn. I'm an alcoholic. These are the AA promises. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises?
We think not.
We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
Hey, let's send our new timers off with in unison. Everyone come off of mute, and let's send them off with a keep coming back. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Keep coming back.
Keep coming back.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.